So, hi everyone. Thank you for watching this. My name's Gilly. I am one of the program organizers at Amplify Montana Youth. My pronouns are she, her, and I will pass it over to Ali.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ali. I'm a sophomore at Hellgate High School, and along with Gilly, I'm the other founder, project organizer of Amplify MT Youth. And today we're meeting with Daniel Carlino, running for PSC. Daniel, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us why you're running for this position.
Yeah, thank you. Daniel Carlino. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm running for the Public Service Commission because it's the most important race in Montana right now as far as the future of our greenhouse gas emissions go. And that's really the whole reason I got into politics in the first place, was just working to stop the climate crisis, and then just watching our politicians and current system just kind of get in the way of us making the progress that science is demanding that we make. So that's why I'm running for this, and I'm going to be happy to share more too.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, but for the people watching this today, we're going to be focusing on what the PSC does, because a lot of people, especially kind of younger voters and newer voters, don't exactly know what it is. So we'll start with a very basic question, but what is the PSC and why is it so important?
Yeah, the Public Service Commission is a board of 5 people for the state that regulates the utility monopolies for our state. So the government granted these monopolies for most of our utilities because most of them work easier that way, like having one transmission, all connected transmission lines for our energy grid, and same with our water and things. So the PSC regulates energy, water, telephone and internet, and railroad and waste management for our state. And it's really important because these are all lifelines and everyday needs for everyone across the world. Especially right now, during this pandemic, we can see that not having proper telecommunications has made it to where so many teachers can't even see their students since this started. Rural areas still don't have cell phone service in emergencies. As far as our energy goes, same thing. It's a basic need for everyone, and having these for-profit companies taken advantage of people in the past. It's left many low-income families without energy at times, and same with water. We still see, even in the U.S., communities that don't have access to clean water. And our water's at stake with a lot of the decisions that are made with politics as well, concerning our environment. And I guess the PSC's main job is just to act as a barrier between these utility monopolies and Montana ratepayers. So every time that these utility monopolies want to make a decision that affects Montanans, whether it be increasing or decreasing our rates or building new energy infrastructure, whether it be natural gas, wind, solar, etc., they have to get the approval by the Public Service Commission. So the PSC's role really is to make sure that everyone has access to all of these utilities, and to make sure that we're putting people first rather than these monopolies' interests in making more money. So my goal is to make sure that we get energy, water, telecommunications to everyone in Montana, regardless of their income and where they live. Yeah, so I see that as the main role of the PSC right now.
Thank you. So most of our audience is younger Montanans, so why don't you tell us a little bit about why young people should care about the Public Service Commission?
Yeah, I mean, we all have a whole lifetime ahead of us. I'm pretty young as well. I'm 22, and the climate crisis is going to affect our lives much worse than it is currently already. Much worse than it is with these older generations. So if we're looking at what we do with our energy grid now, we're going to be seeing those effects decades down the road. So we need a Public Service Commission who's not going to allow more oil and gas projects in Montana and not allow us to dive deeper into coal power, because the future of our climate is at stake with those issues, and the future of preserving clean water for generations is also here with the Public Service Commission issues. So this is a huge race for climate change, and and just by changing our energy grid and making sure that we're not letting these companies frack for more gas and drill for more gas and oil in Montana, but rather move towards renewable energy. So we're really like trying to do what's right now to make sure that we have a livable future later on. So the Public Service Commission is a really important race for young people that are concerned about climate change.
Awesome, thank you. So you kind of mentioned this briefly earlier, but what path led you to run for the PSC?
Yeah, so I was studying environmental studies and wildlife biology at here, and I started a climate student group there just because I knew I wanted to work on stopping climate change, but I didn't know exactly how to get started with that. So we started just trying to organize like educational events, and then we saw that Northwestern Energy was the energy monopoly that controls most of this area of the country, and we saw that the Public Service Commission was getting to decide on their next 20-year energy plan. So with my climate student group a couple of years ago, we organized with the Sierra Club in 350 Montana and took a bus full of people over to Helena to talk to the Public Service Commission and comment in person about this 20-year energy plan. And we filled up the whole room just commenting in favor of renewable energy and not letting them dig us deeper into fossil fuels. And there's just the 5 public service commissioners, like old guys, old rich men in suits, just like looking at us and then they come out with their plan a few months later, and it just completely ignores everything that the people were asking for. There's in their 20-year energy plan, there's no plans for large renewable energy. They're going to double the amount of energy that they use, all by oil and gas and coal. And their greenhouse gas emissions are set to go up in the next 20 years. So just watching our politicians listen to their constituents and just do the exact opposite was really frustrating. And then I started running this campaign called the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge campaign in Montana, where we try and take the fossil fuel industry's lobbyist, political action committee, and CEO money that they've been contributing to candidates for decades. We're trying to get candidates and politicians to agree not to take fossil fuel money. So I would go into these different politicians' events and candidates' events and ask them to sign our pledge to not take fossil fuel money. And I was just very surprised about how many are unwilling to sign that pledge, and just being told time and time again that these politicians need to take this fossil fuel money or else they won't win. And then also watching those same politicians support things like the Keystone XL pipeline that's being built through Montana right now, not taking a stance against fracking and things like that, got me really frustrated. And it made it really clear that we need drastic change in our politics and new leadership if we're trying to actually tackle this crisis at the scale that it's presenting us with. So just being really frustrated with our politics and just like kind of seeing the writing on the wall of the need for change made me want to get more involved.
Great, thank you. So what experience do you have? Why do you think you are qualified to be the next public service commissioner?
Yeah. Well, I like I said, I organized my Climate Action Collective student group that I started at and then I helped start the Sunrise Movement here in Missoula and Bozeman. We're trying to fight for a Green New Deal and take on some of the political corruptness that's been going on. So this year I've helped lead a couple trainings, weekend-long trainings where we try and empower youth on how they can actively fight against racism and fight against like social injustices in our country, and also try and tackle the climate crisis at the same time. So I guess I bring a lot of like organizing experience to the table and education. I know I don't have years of law experience like some other candidates, but one thing that I do have is the right vision forward of what needs to happen to stop climate change. Looking back at past public service commissioners, Republicans or Democrats alike have voted for natural gas plants in our state, voted for coal power, and it just can't happen again if we just can't afford one more natural gas plant. So I guess the main thing that makes me qualified for this position is just having the proper education and vision of what needs to be done with our greenhouse gas emissions and energy grid. to stop climate change, and also just being consistent in putting everyday people first rather than these monopolies' interests and profits. The Public Service Commission really shouldn't be nonpartisan, like Republican or Democrat. It should really be what's right and what's wrong. And I'm here to do what's right for everyday people, not these big companies' interests. So I guess my education is the main thing, and organizing experience are the main experience that I bring to the table that I think will lead us down the right path with our energy future.
Thank you. So you've talked about this a lot, and it's obviously the biggest issue facing young people, especially today. But what is the role of the PSC in actually addressing climate change in Montana?
Yeah, the role of the PSC is to make sure that we're holding these energy monopolies accountable to do what's best for our environment and for people and for our future, rather than just their profits. When the PSC wants to make decisions, like the one that's going on right now, they're trying to buy another quarter of Colstrip Unit 4 for $1, and they need the approval by the Public Service Commission to get that deal. So the Public Service Commission's role there would be to reject this plan and not allow them to buy more coal power, because that's the main thing that's holding us back from stopping climate change, is because of our politicians allowing these fossil fuel projects. So the main job of the PSC in addressing climate change is going to be not approving any more oil, gas, or coal projects as that regulatory body, just not allowing that to happen is the main thing I see. And then also just trying to be a leader in saying what needs to be done, what scientists are demanding when talking to our legislature and when talking to these monopolies. The PSC voted a few months ago on whether or not they should consider climate change when making their decisions. They voted 3-2 against that. So basically, these monopolies are just getting away with not having to think about climate change, even though it's affecting the most vulnerable people across the world. It's affecting us here in Montana, but they're just not concerned about it, and the PSC has been allowing them to get away with that. So the PSC his position is going to be to take a strong stance against Northwestern Energy's greed and not letting them do these oil and gas projects. Awesome,
thank you. So say you're elected, what will be your first priority on day one?
Yeah, if I'm elected on day one, I'm gonna open up a docket, bring back up the court case that happened in 2008 on the PSC, where they bought Colstrip Unit 4, 25% of that for $187 million. And Northwestern Energy bought that. And then the Public Service Commission evaluated that same piece of Colstrip at $407 million. And the reason that was so bad is because ever since then, Northwestern Energy gets a 10% return on equity every year on things that they own. So since the PSC evaluated this at $407 million, even though they only paid $187 million, Montana ratepayers have been paying $40 million in profits to Northwestern Energy just off of this one coal plant every single year. That's been going on for 12 years. And not only is that really bad for everybody who's struggling to pay their bills and pay their energy bills, but that's what's holding us on to coal power. Coal power is the most expensive power in Montana right now. And the reason that we're holding on to it and this company is trying to invest more into it is because they got this sweetheart deal from the PSC. So on day one, I'd like to open up a docket and work with our PSC staff and try to make sure that that deal is not going on any longer. And that'll get us off of coal power faster and stop people from having to pay this $40 million in profits to Northwestern Energy a year off of something that shouldn't be evaluated that high in the first place. So I guess there's going to be a lot to do with just undoing the past PSC's horrible decisions. So that's going to be the first thing I'd like to do on there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So that is actually our whole interview today. Thank you so much for being on. And everyone who has watched any of the end of our videos, you know what I'm going to say, but please go vote. If you are of voting age, the primary is June 2nd, so please mail in your ballot. if you are eligible to vote in Montana. And yeah, thank you again so much, Daniel, for being on.
Yeah, thank you too for having this show. I know you can't vote, and I know you probably want to, but this is awesome. This is even more influential, I think. So thanks for being so involved.